Hello and welcome to the Bucket Lister podcast. Join your host Keith Crockford along with special guests who have travelled the world, here to share stories of their adventures and plenty of inspo to add to your bucket list. Now, let's get into today's episode.
Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of the Bucket Lister podcast. I am your host Keith Crockford and I am back today with Jake, but this time I'm not going to be chatting with Jake. Jake is going to be chatting with me because in a minute I'm going to hand over to Jake and he is going to ask me questions on our recent trip to Morocco that I did with a bucket list group doing the whitewater rafting trip. So whitewater rafting in Morocco is, you don't think about Morocco as a whitewater rafting destination. It's not on many people's lists of things to do, and I want to change that. So hopefully with this podcast, I will create some more interest and hopefully get some more people heading to Morocco to try whitewater rafting. So I am now going to hand the reins over to Jake, and Jake can ask me some questions. So hi, Jake.
Hi, Keith. Thanks very much. It's it's good to be back on this end. And actually, when you came back and we started talking about Morocco and the whitewater rafting, it very, very quickly became something that I now want to add to my personal bucket list. So hopefully by the end of this, I'll have a few more tips and tricks for when I get the chance to get out. So I kind of just wanted to ask you and go over again, what was the trip about? I mean, we offer so many different trips to Morocco, but what exactly is the whitewater rafting trip? What does it include?
So, like you say, we offer many trips to Morocco. A lot of them are trekking trips. And I mean, the reason why we introduced the whitewater rafting trip was because originally we did a Zambezi whitewater rafting trip to raft down the Zambezi. Now, the Zambezi is quite a testing river, and it's quite demanding, and for a lot of people they have never whitewater raft before. So in terms of that, I kind of wanted to create a bucket list trip that wasn't too expensive, because rafting the Zambezi is quite an expensive trip, and I wanted to create a trip that we actually had people coming through, like had gone whitewater rafting, had found that they really, really enjoyed it, and then wanted to go on to the next thing. So hopefully, again, in the future, we can then launch the Zambezi one again and hopefully get some more interest in it and get more people on it. So that was the original reason for looking at one slightly closer to home. The trip itself is a 2-day descent of the river Ahansal in Morocco. It's right in the center of Morocco in the high Atlas Mountains. It's a snow melt river, so you can only really paddle it in March and April is when it's got water in the river enough for you to be able to go down it in a raft. In terms of the whitewater rafting itself, rivers are graded predominantly from grade 1 to grade 5, 5 being the hardest type of water. I mean, you can get 6, which is extreme, but generally it's 1 to 5. The Ahansal is a grade 3 river with sections of grade 4, so it's achievable by everybody. You don't need any special skills. You don't need to have done it before. So that was kind of what I was looking for in a trip. Again, we were rafting on that trip, and we didn't see anybody else for 2 days pretty much. Like it was lovely to be out there on your own with your group, and not really see. There was definitely no other whitewater rafters. We saw a few locals, and we saw a couple of people on mules trekking up the side of the canyon, but that was about it. Excuse me. So in terms of the trip itself, it's a 6-day trip, so easily done, within a week's holiday. Obviously, shortish flight to get to Marrakesh. you have your first day in Marrakesh, and you stay in Marrakesh in a riad in the center of Marrakesh, like we do for all of our trips. And then on day 2, then we get up and get into a 4x4 and head up through the Atlas Mountains to get to the starting point. We stop for lunch in the Azoud waterfalls, which are the highest waterfalls in Morocco, which is a lovely spot to stop and have lunch in. And then we head to the starting point, which is at a place quite close to what they call Cathedral Rock. Now, Cathedral Rock is just this massive lump of rock that basically looks like you could be in the Yosemite National Park. It is huge. It is stunning. And, you know, to see that with the sun setting on it and the reds and the oranges is just really, really nice. We stay in a local guest house, and, you know, have dinner in the guest house the night before, get our briefing, and then the next day we're all packed and ready in the rafts to head down. Now it feels like it's a proper expedition, because you have the raft that you're paddling in, and you also have the other raft which has all the kit carried in it as well, with the local team paddling that one. So pretty much you are on an unsupported expedition for 2 days, so it properly feels like you're on this trip. So you spend the day paddling down, you stop for lunch. You know, the guys that are with us made us a lovely tagine lunch next to the side of the river. You spend all day paddling, and then you get to this like most amazing campsite, which is literally right next to the river. There's no one there. You're in the middle of nowhere. You know, you put your tents up. If you wanted to, you could sleep out under the stars. Again, the guides cooked us the most amazing meal in the evening on at the side of the river. And then the following day, we got up, had breakfast, and then paddled for another day to basically get out of the canyon. And whilst you're on this trip, you're basically going through this amazing canyon. You know, sometimes the walls are like 100 meters high above you. It is just literally like stunning. The water levels were really good. You know, there were some lovely drops, some, you know, lovely waterfalls that you paddled down. You know, not big waterfalls, but, you know, nice drops in. And then, yeah, you finish at this massive lake where you then basically a boat comes and picks you up and tows us across the lake to finish on what would technically therefore then be day 4 of the whole trip in total. And then head back to Marrakesh, have a free day in Marrakesh on day 5, and then fly home again then on day 6. And we were quite lucky that we had a later flight out on the day of day 6. So you still ended up with kind of the morning into lunchtime. I think we got picked up at 4:00 in the afternoon. So you kind of felt like you still had the whole day to explore Marrakesh and do what you needed to do on day 6, really. So although it's a short trip, like everyone that was on it just felt like they just got so much out of it, because we crammed so much into those 6 days that, you know, they kind of felt that they ticked so much off, really.
It does sound like an action-packed trip. And one of the things that I really like is what you said about it feeling like a proper expedition. So for 6 days, not only do you get to experience Marrakesh and all the culture that has to offer, but you also get to be on a proper whitewater rafting expedition, bags in the boats, camping, that type of thing. So if I was looking at doing this trip in the future, then I've been whitewater rafting once. I loved every minute of it. I have been once. What kind of experience would I need if I was going onto this trip then?
You wouldn't need any experience. Like, you know, all the other guys that were on the trip had never whitewater rafted before. Years and years ago, I used to be a raft guide. I used to do quite a bit of rafting, but, you know, none of the other guys had any experience. You know, you get taught everything you need. You know, comments from the group were, "Oh, I thought you'd have to put more effort into this." And actually, you know, for a lot of the time when you're whitewater rafting, you can kind of enjoy the view, because, you know, you're not paddling constantly. You know, you might do a couple of paddle strokes to move the boat into the position you want it to be in, and then the river takes you down anyway. So, it's not overly energetic. Anyone could go on that trip. You could take kids, you could take, your granddad. Like there is no limit to that trip, really. It is literally for everybody.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay, so you don't need too much experience then, which is great. What about in terms of kit? So I know with a lot of these expeditions, if you're going out and you're doing big mountains in Nepal or Toubkal in Morocco, you might go out and buy certain bits of kit. Was there any kit that you'd recommend that people go out and buy? Was it what did they supply for you? What did the kit look like?
So predominantly, obviously, you're going to need a sleeping bag.
Yeah.
They provided pillows. They provided mats to sleep in the tent. You literally just needed a sleeping bag. With regards to your personal, what you're wearing, they provide you with a wetsuit. They provide you with a buoyancy aid. They provide you with a helmet. The only thing you're going to need to take is something to wear underneath the wetsuit, i.e., a swimming costume, or a pair of like solid water shoes. Like you are going to be like walking around on the rocks and stuff like that. So you don't want a pair of flimsy wetsuit boots. You need something with a bit of a sole. I mean, you could wear old trainers. You don't need water shoes. So in terms of what kit you need, it's very minimal. What else did I take? I mean, I took all my own paddling kit. None of the other guys did. They used what was supplied, which is, wetsuits were all new. Everything was all perfectly adequate. I made the decision that I was going to paddle in a rash vest and a pair of wetsuit shorts just because, well, two reasons. One, I thought actually it's going to be quite warm. I didn't think I was going to fall out the boat, so I didn't expect to go swimming. And then also I wanted a nice tan. So I was perfectly, we only had one Joe, bless him, from the group. We went down one drop, or we hit a bump in the water, and he went flying out the side of the boat. But we only had one swimmer on the whole trip, and he got a proper dunking.
Well, that was going to be my next question: was how many times, if any, did you fall in, or did anyone fall in? But actually, one's not too bad.
One wasn't too bad. I mean, we did have a it was really on day two. We all got a little bit wet, but that wasn't because of falling in. That was because of a rescue that we had to do. And the thing is, with whitewater rafting, like sometimes you cannot see the rocks that are just underneath the waterline. So like you're paddling the raft, you think you've got it all lined up to avoid the rocks, and you've got a perfect line. And literally at the last minute, the boat will hit a rock under the water and it'll spin you round, and you haven't got time to correct it. And that happened with the kit boat. And it got to the point where there was this massive rock in the middle of the river, and it turned the boat sideways, and the boat got pinned on the rock. But the water was flowing quite quickly and quite rapidly at that point. And the boat just got swamped with water, and it got pinned, and they couldn't get it off. And like it just got wrapped around this rock, and we literally had to get all of the kit off the boat by using the other raft to be able to like get the boat light enough to be able to maneuver it. And we had to set up pulleys and to pull it off, and it was all quite exciting for about it was about 45 minutes it took us to like get this boat unpinned. But that's part of the expedition at the end of the day. That's part of the experience. That's part of something always doesn't go to plan on an expedition. It was just unfortunate that it was the kit boat but everything in the kit boat is in blue barrels. It's all wrapped up. Everything's in dry bags. But, there were a few bags and barrels that got they came off the boat, and then the guides were swimming down the river to try it. A gas bottle came off the boat, and one of the guides went swimming down the river to retrieve the gas bottle. And yeah, it was all quite exciting for like 45 minutes. But
I kind of love things like that. You come back with some great stories, and it is part of the adventure, and it is a proper it's a proper expedition. It's a proper, boats and packs and exciting moments. Like, it's brilliant, and I can't believe, especially when looking at the photos and hearing the stories, that all of that, including your flights, was 6 days.
Yeah. Like you say, we did so much. Now, it is quite a drive to get up to the High Atlas. On day 2, we take a little bit of a detour from the trip to go to the waterfalls, and then we get back on the route again to then go to Cathedral Rock. I mean, if you did it, and I mean, on the way home from the lake at the finish, it was about a 4-hour drive back to Marrakesh. So we kind of got packed up and finished day 4 at about 5:20, I suppose. And then we were back in Marrakesh just after 9:00. And we did stop and have a break. We didn't just drive for 4 hours. But on the way up, it does take a bit longer because we do take a detour to go to the waterfalls, which is well worth going and seeing it. You get to see the monkeys. The waterfalls are really stunning. So it is worth, and it does break the day up quite nicely. The other problem we had, obviously, there is nothing nicer than having a campfire next to a river with a cold beer, which, is generally how most whitewater rafting trips go. So we had planned to go in by, and obviously, in Morocco, the alcohol laws are, not the same as they are in the UK. You can't go and buy it everywhere. There are only certain places that sell it. And we kind of planned to stop in this hypermarket on the way up on day 2. And when we got there, the alcohol section didn't open until 11:00, and we were there at 10:15. So we were like, oh, we're not going to stick around here and wait for an hour and 15 minutes. Like, don't worry, we won't take anything with us. And then our guide, Mo, he was like, I know one more place we can try. We can try one more place. And we were like, well, if we're driving past it and it's not much of a detour, and then, we'll try it. And actually, when we got there, he knew this hotel that sold beer and wine. So he's like, I know the people that work in there. We'll swing by there and we can get some cans. So at least you can have a cold beer by the river, which, when you finish paddling all day and you're sat there with a campfire, actually having a cold beer. And, when we got there, we put all the beers in a bag in the river, just cool them down.
Nice.
And then, just sat there and had a nice beer on the evening. So,
I mean, the sky, like looking up at that must have been incredible. Like with that much light pollution and the stars.
Yeah. I mean, there's no light pollution. I mean, Joe, who was on the trips, are really keen. He is a professional photographer, so he was taking loads of photos. And he got a cracking photo of the night sky and the landscape, and it's just such an amazing landscape. And again, it's the one thing that I really love about bucket list trips. And the thing that and I said this on the podcast we did when we were talking about, Easter Island. The thing I love most of all about Easter Island is I don't know very many people who have been to Easter Island. Yeah. And, that's the same with this. Like, our rafting guide, the guy who owns the rafting company up there, like, he's like, yeah, we'll only do like 250 people raft in a year, and the majority of those are Moroccans. So there's very few people who have rafted that river in a year. And that's the kind of thing that I like, is that when I came back and they've been, where have you, everyone says to me, where were you last week, or what have you been up to? And you're like, oh, I was whitewater rafting in Morocco. And they're like, I thought Morocco was hot. I don't think there's any, I don't think there's any water in Morocco. Like, and you're like, well, there's plenty of water if you go at the right time of year. And, the scenery is stunning, and it's just the most amazing thing to do. And, the nice thing I like about it as well is it was on the whitewater rafting trip, we can't take lots of people. The way, you can only have 6 people in a boat. Like, we could have a couple of boats, and then we've got the kit boat carrying all the kit. That's all we can really take. So you're not going to have massive groups of people doing it.
No, so I mean, you are going to get to know the people in your group. It's going to be quite a small number, which is really nice. Get to know everyone really, really well. and you don't just feel like you're, with these big groups on on something that everybody gets to do. It does feel special. It does feel unique. It does feel like you're the only, or what you were the only group out there. On those days. One thing that I did want to ask you about, and we all got quite excited when we saw it, saw the photos and videos coming into the office. I want to see maybe if we'll get there without giving it away too much. But was there a point when you were heading up to the whitewater rafting where you stopped and you were taking some pictures, and there were some animals that might have made it a little bit tricky?
Yeah, well, no, they're just at the waterfalls. The monkeys live at the waterfalls, and it's all part of the. You've got people there selling bags of nuts for you to feed the monkeys, and they know they're going to get food because of the amount of tourists that go and visit the waterfalls.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was just monkeys everywhere, and Joe was trying to get photos of there was a monkey there with its baby, and Joe was trying to get a photo of it, and next minute a monkey jumped on his head. And starts scratching his head, and he's like, I don't know what to do. I've got this monkey on my head. But yeah, it's just again, it's part of the trip. It's part of the experience. It's I just it's one of those trips where I think it could be your second trip of the year. Like if you had a big trip that you were going on to, like a Kilimanjaro, an Everest Base Camp, or a Machu Picchu, and you just wanted an early in the year getaway, because like I say, you've got to go in like March or April because there's no water in the river. So you have got to go at that time of the year. You can't go, I've only got a week off in August, because you're going to be walking a lot of that river if you plan to go there in August. But I think for the fact that it's only a 6-day trip, you can do it within a week. You've only got to take a week's leave, 5 days leave, and the trip's fully achievable. But you get to see part of Morocco that many other people won't have visited before.
Yeah, well, like I say, it is definitely a place on my bucket list, and I've loved seeing all the photos. I've loved seeing all the videos. It's been great to chat with you about that trip and all it has to offer. So I'm just really excited. I suppose the last thing from me then, and I haven't done this in the last couple of episodes, but where's next for Keith Crockford? What's next on your list? What have you got to either tick off, or what are you looking forward to doing next? Where are you off to?
Well, I am off to the Maldives in a few weeks to go and look at a potential new trip in the Maldives, which I'm super excited about. I think, the more people I explain this to, it kind of opens it up to a few more people, really, because the Maldives always has this stigma about it, that it's a romantic destination. Somewhere you go with your girlfriend or your fiance or your wife, or you go there for your honeymoon. It's kind of that. And, the Maldives is, with what's happening with the planet at the minute, the Maldives is shrinking. Like, it might not be there. They're talking about it, it's a load of islands that, that aren't very big. If the sea rises by a couple of meters, then actually the most of the Maldives isn't going to be there again. So I think it is on a lot of people's bucket list. I mean, for people like you, Jake, that are single and doesn't have a girlfriend, like you can if anyone's looking, Jake Field on Facebook. But in terms of I want to create. And also as well, like, people don't want to go in. Like, for me, like, I don't want to go and sit in a 5-star resort for 2 weeks on holiday, and you see all those like beach huts on stilts with slides going into the water. Like, that's not my idea of a trip for me. I want to be going and immersing myself with the locals and seeing the real Maldives, and that's kind of the trip that I'm trying to create. Obviously, being a super keen scuba diver, it's also on my list to go out there and do some diving as well. So, I want to kind of create this trip that allows single people who want to visit the Maldives and don't want to think of it as a romantic destination to then head out there and do a trip. So that's kind of the whole point of that trip, really. Then after that, I'm going to Barcelona. Never been to Barcelona before. I've driven through it, but I've never actually been there. That's for a little personal trip, friend of mine's birthday, so we're going out there for that. Then I get back from that one, and then I'm off on our Lares trek to Machu Picchu. So that takes me to the middle of May. So that's kind of my next few weeks of traveling, really. But yeah, so coming up to a super busy time, and we've got Nepal season for us just about to start kicking off in a few weeks with all of our Nepal trips. I'm not going out in the spring. I'm heading out in the autumn. So I haven't got a Nepal trip this spring. But I'm looking forward to getting back out there in the autumn again. Yeah, so loads of trips, loads of things to do. And like I say, we've got all this, in the office at the minute. We're planning on all of our new trips in other places we want to visit. So yeah, things are super busy, and I'm just looking forward to more and more traveling, really. And I've just done back-to-back Morocco trips. So I've done the whitewater one, and then before that I was doing the surf and yoga one. So yeah, for me it's it would be nice to. I mean, I think we're quite lucky like that we don't tend to do multiple trips to the same location. So I think now I don't think I'm visiting the same location again for the rest, because I'm not going back to Morocco this year. So I think I'm all new destinations.
Like that. Yeah, we're really lucky, I think, as guides as well, being able to go on these trips. I always feel really lucky because we don't do loads of back-to-back trips. As great as that would be, there's also something about, I know that I've got it to look forward to once in the year, twice in the year. And it does give that little bit of time where I can look forward to going back every single time and have enough to catch up with people about in those countries who we work with. So it's going to be a very, very busy season coming up, but we're looking forward to it. And maybe we will at some point in between all of our different trips get a chance to chat about the Maldives and a few other trips coming up. So
we'll certainly be chatting about the Maldives. I'm really looking forward to that. I've been planning my diving and where I'm going to go and what I'm going to do. And so yeah, I mean that is a lovely thing about our job, is the fact that it is great to go and travel with our bucket listers and run our trips and lead our trips. But sometimes I do feel that it is really nice to go and look at new destinations and travel on your own again and experience things for the first time, because it reminds you what it's like to be somebody on our trips, like seeing it through their eyes for the first time. Like, I kind of forget now, like, about like Kathmandu, the first time I ever visited Kathmandu, like, what it must feel like for our guests to go there for the first time, because you've done it so many times, like, walking through the main square in Marrakesh and through the souks. That's just like a normal thing for me now, because I've done it so many times. But for our clients and people on their first time trips to Marrakesh, you're like, wow, like what it's sensual overload. And when you run the trips, you kind of forget about that sensual overload because you're doing them all the time. So to go and do new recce trips and visit new destinations that you've never been to before, that's one of the best parts of this job, is to be able to go and do that, really, I think.
Well, it's why you and I both got into it. I think there were so many places that we wanted to see and things that we wanted to do that's always going to be a big part for us. And it's why we look into, so many more destinations. And we're going to continue doing so, because first and foremost, we love traveling and we like going out, and we like exploring, and we just want to share that with everyone else. So yeah, the more opportunities that we get to go and find new places, the better, really.
Well, it adds, our bucket lists are ever increasing, so we need to keep adding new things onto our lists as well.
Well, thank you very, very much for chatting with me about all whitewater rafting in Morocco. It's been really, really interesting.
Yeah, perfect. I think if you have a think about it and you think that could be on your list of things to do, head over to the website. I'll put a link in the show notes to the trip. It is an amazing trip, and one which I don't think there is, unless you really don't like water, there should be no reason why why you wouldn't enjoy the whitewater rafting trip. So do have a look. And also next year we combine the whitewater trip with a Mount Tootcow track as well. So if you wanted to extend it, you could go and do Mount Tootcow and then head out on the whitewater rafting trip as well. So we've kind of added that in. So actually, if you did want to go for a longer trip, you can bolt those two together. So that might be something worth looking into as well. Well, Jake, thanks ever so much for asking me the questions this week. I really appreciate it. We'll be back for another episode of the Bucket Lister podcast next week. And next week, we're going to be discussing, we had a question the other day, or someone asked us to do an episode of the podcast where they wanted to know, how do you get a job as a adventure tour guide or a tour leader? So next week, we're going to have a quick chat about A, how we got into this industry, and B, if anyone is thinking of a job like this, then we'll hopefully give you some hints and tips on how to do it and what to look out for. So join us next week. And until then, goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bucket Lister podcast. Be sure to click follow to be alerted for next week's episode. For more travel inspiration, check us out at www.thebucketlistcompany.co.uk or follow us on socials. See you next time.